Hey, kid, do you want some drugs? If so, perhaps you should consider signing up for the Mystical American Patriot Society's companion podcast, The St. Nicholas Project, on Gum Road.
But I wanted drugs. Is the St. Nicholas Project on Gum Road similar to a drug?
Not only is it similar, it's better. Twice as habit forming for half the cost, and it doesn't even rot your teeth or give you lung cancer.
But if I don't have lung cancer, how will I fuel the pharmaceutical industries who are dedicated to keeping my grandmother strung out on OxyContin for the rest of her life?
You won't! That's the great part. Signing up for the St. Nicholas Project on Gum Road not only supports your favorite podcast, but it keeps old people from becoming heroin addicts. The St. Nicholas Project on Gum Road, the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, so hey guys, if you want to sign up for the St. Nicholas Project, that would be great. Don't expect too much. Of course, everything it will keep old people from being strung on OxyContin through a roundabout way. But it is mostly just there for you guys to support us. It's like our Patreon. You do get occasional extra little individual shows from me, some of which are good, some of which are not so good. But, it's just giving you guys a little something extra in exchange for you giving us a little bit of support. And we appreciate every bit of it. All of it is very helpful. Thank you so much.
1, 2, 3.
Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriot Society is transmitting to you from our secret ice fortress and laboratory high in the Swiss Alps. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. Keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground as Sumo and Smokestack direct your attention to a higher dimension. Are you ready? Stand by.
She packed my bags last night pre-flight. 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. Good morning.
Hello.
I was told that I was having trouble deciding if I wanted to play that or, the Major Tom one. Planet Earth is blue and it's run by all the Jews. No, I don't. See, the problem is it's both those songs are hard for me to sing in my range.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Question. And this does have to do with all recent events. I'm going to bring it back around. Question. Let's table. I'm going to ask a question, then we'll table it. How about that?
Okay.
Ask a question, then we'll table it, and then I'll tell you about all that happened to me. How does eating work in space? You ever thought about that? Like, wouldn't your saliva just be sort of floating in your mouth?
Or wouldn't you need gravity for proper digestion?
Yeah, wouldn't you? Or proper functioning of your blood system. I mean, a lot of it relies on if your circulatory system was gravity independent, that'd be weird. I mean, because it's been in gravity forever.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work? You know, like I don't know. It doesn't. If I was on one of those free fall machines at a roller coaster park,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to eat in a perpetual free fall machine, I think things would not be as simple. You ever? I don't know. Just think. But anyway, I heard tell that our listeners believe that I have been sucked out of an airlock and killed.
Well, your organs were sucked out of an airlock.
Well, that's actually, that was misinformation. That's propaganda by the corrupt
I've been had.
Russian Ukrainian government. I was actually in combat with the Ghost of Kiev.
Oh, wow, that's even better.
And it was intense, but I was ultimately victorious. And a lot of people think he's a hero. They think that he is fighting back the Russian forces. But I am here to tell you that he told me specifically while we were in combat, we were raiding each other back on the comms, while we were doing aerial maneuvers in our dogfight.
Yep.
And he said, let me try to do a Ukrainian accent. It's not the best. He said, George Floyd not hero. George Floyd deserve it. And I said, how dare you, Nazi? And so I was on the Ukrainian side until he said that.
Right.
See?
Mm-hmm.
And then, because we were fighting side by side, it was me, the Ghost of Kiev, and some guy floating around in an Iron Man suit somehow.
Yeah.
And we were fighting the Russians. And we were doing amazing. I mean, as you could tell, every battle was a heroic victory, and you could tell this in the news because every time the battle took place closer and closer to one of our major cities. And that's how you could tell we were winning.
Gotcha.
And we were, there was a tank at one point, and I had a water balloon full of paint, and I covered the optics with it. And that stopped it. Me and a bunch of other Ukrainian furries.
You're so brave.
Stormed the streets, and we stopped I personally was walking around giving sunflower seeds to the Ukrainian troops, or the Russian troops rather. And I was telling them, now don't eat these. These are for when you die. Sunflowers will grow from your corpse. But they didn't believe me. They didn't believe me, and they continue to press on in the battle. And so me and the Ghost of Kiev were up in the air fighting, and I said, "Let's do this one for all the transsexual children in the world."
Yeah,
Ghost of Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take out Putler so that everyone can have hormone replacement therapy. And he said, "No, I do not believe children under the age of 3 should have transsexual surgery." And so I turned on him.
Ah, I see.
I turned on him instantly. And that's when he told me the truth. He let his true colors fly about George Floyd.
Yep.
He's an anti-vaxxer. Or he was until I destroyed him. Oh,
right. Yeah.
He was an anti-vaxxer. He does not believe in climate change.
Man.
He believes in borders for Mexicans, but obviously not, but also for Russians to come across, because those are, one is good and the other's bad, but he didn't recognize the difference. And just all around, he was not, well, I don't even want to. This is so disreputable. I don't even want to. But he was on a Russian cartoon as a white man.
Oh no.
Voicing a black character.
Oh no.
He engaged in black erasure, is what I'm saying.
Oh no.
He did that,
awful.
and I had to put him down as a good American. I don't care how many Russians he was killing in the skies.
That can't stand.
As an ace. It just... And that really soured my whole opinion of the Ukrainian people. And now I don't know who to support because they put this guy up as their champion. So I've withdrawn from the war for now, and I just have to play out how it plays out. I'm no longer a mercenary for hire in this thing until I can figure out who the Nazis are, because I started the war and they told me the Nazis were the Russians, but then Putin said no, he's there to denazify Ukraine.
Right.
And so I don't know who to believe.
It is a little confusing. Who are the Nazis? Seems like it changes all the time.
I don't know who to believe. I just know that this is not what George Floyd taught us.
We just need a better racism accounting system so we can figure out which side is the most racist and then attack them.
Well, and that used to be very easy when it was white people versus brown people.
Yeah. Now it's all confusing.
When we blew up all the brown people in Iraq, that was obviously because they were the racist ones.
Obviously, yes.
And that was good. And when we just indiscriminately bombed all of their cities to make it easier for us to do that.
Yep.
That was the application. That was critical race theory and gender studies in practice.
I mean, actually it was.
But when the Russians move faster without doing that, without cluster bombing the cities, that is indicative of the fact that they are falling apart, have no money, and that they ran out of food, and now they're going into grocery stores.
Yep.
Asking if I heard that the Russian soldiers were so out of food, they were going door to door asking for food from local Ukrainian citizens. And one badass grandma, she said sure, and she secretly fed them a laxative. And then when they went into the bathroom, she set her own house on fire and killed them. And so she is a hero. Just like me. And that's what I would do if I was there. Now, I was there, but if I was there now, that's also what I would be doing.
You would give them laxatives?
I like everyone else, if I had the opportunity to volunteer to go fight in Ukraine, which we all do, I would take it. I would not just be sitting on the internet telling people, encouraging civilians to take on armor using whatever materials they have in their pantry.
Yeah.
I would not just be doing that. I would be out there doing it. I would have a can of spray paint and a bow and arrow. And just like Hawkeye, I would be taking out armored division after armored division. And I just, which is what I did do for a while. But then of course I got confused on who the Nazis were. So here we are.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to have you back.
It's just been a very trying time. It used to be so simple who the Nazis were. It was the Germans. The Germans were Nazis.
Yeah.
And then they decided no. And then it was just anyone that voted for Donald Trump was a Nazi, and that was it. But now it's like, are the Russians Nazis? I thought so, but then the Russians are saying no, they're the Nazis.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess, can we all agree that Ukraine needs to be denazified? If it has Nazis, it needs to be denazified. Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
So, do you see my quandary? I don't know what to do with Pudler.
Yeah. This is difficult.
Because it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So, yeah, I just had a time. All of those things that I said, by the way, are stories that I've heard people tout as true.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard most of them. It's pretty wild.
What are people doing?
Well, we just got done with COVID and all the BS, and they're still believing it. They're still just believing everything that comes out of the tube. I can't take it.
I mean, they can't do anything else. But like I don't. It's great because I've told people. I told people that that all the COVID news was hysteria and insanity.
Yeah.
For like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, but no one, people had trouble believing me because there was no like tangible pushback because COVID being not a thing that has maybe real, but at least that it is visible.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot throw the claims back into people's faces so readily as can an advancing army, just completely destroying their credibility.
Yep.
But they were lying the same amount. Everything was the same amount of hysteria, propaganda, and insanity. It's just it couldn't be contradicted by them visibly losing every day. Now,
yeah.
I mean, it could, because everything they did didn't work. But that didn't. But that was like, I don't know. No one paid attention. That's how it's always been. It's been that way. Everything has been nonsense our whole lives. And I'm still trying to come to terms with that. Everyone is, I think. I mean, it's a Baghdad Bob all over again. So, whatever. No one will learn. And that's...
Our listeners, they're learning.
I don't think they are. I think a lot of them are like welder by trade, who has now learned. He's now learned. I'm not going to lump him in with those. But a lot of them are like unrepentant welder by trade.
Right.
Who just listen to this show and they hear what I say, and then they would listen to the show and they'd still get upset about the trucker protest. And like, guys, everything is always fake forever. Nothing's ever real. And I know that I'm not saying that the war isn't happening, but it is also on another level super fake. Like Zelensky, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
He is literally an actor that the U.S. set up as a puppet president to act a certain role. And this is why the space station is important and the space shuttle.
I saw a video the other day of Zelensky and a few other guys in front of a piano playing Hava Nagila with their genitals.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Hava Nagila that's the song that goes da da ba 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 da 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 da. Now that is not. People think that's the song of Jews, but it isn't.
It's not?
No, the Jewish people are the Hava Nagila is the song of well, it's the song of people that like want to convince you to take out a student loan. That's what that song is. Okay. It's like ba ba da 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 da. Take out a student loan. Ba 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 da 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 da. Go die for Nazis in Ukraine. That's all. That's all that's ever been. Because there is a stark difference between the like I've said before, a lot of these people claiming the title of Jew are just using that as a liability shield. They don't believe in Judaism at all.
Yes.
They don't. If they could claim being black, they would, but their skin color doesn't match. So they need another victim group they can pretend to be. So that they can, when you criticize their behavior, they can be like, you're attacking me and I'm this. And they could choose gay, and a lot of them are doing that now. Mm-hmm. Like Booty Judge. Yeah, he's not really gay. I mean, he may be, but he just picked that. He just started being gay so that would be something that would help him in politics. Literally the only reason. He may have gotten used to it by now.
Well, they may have to switch their shield because I don't think the Zoomer generation gives a crap about World War II and the Holocaust.
They don't, and so they will switch their shield when it runs out of... I I mean that they're arguably trying to do that now.
Okay.
They're trying to add on, like, that's why they have, like, they're trying to multiply the victim group so they can just shift into a different one. You know, but that group of people has always been there, and they just use whichever. Just in our era, they have claimed to be Jews, but in past eras, they claim to be whatever helped them. You know, avoid being blamed.
Yeah.
And so this guy is not. I guarantee you, he doesn't believe anything about Judaism. He's not he doesn't follow Torah. He doesn't. He's just.
Wait, who doesn't?
He's just Zelensky or whatever.
Does he claim to be Jewish?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
They all do. And this is not, again, it's not Jews, though. This is why I'm trying to defend Jews.
Gotcha.
Because the real Jews are like, they work at a deli in Manhattan or something.
Yeah.
They are not running the world and trying to. George Soros is not a real Jew. In fact, he put Jews literally with the Nazis into camps. And he admits to doing that.
True fact.
He's not, like, he is... It's just so stupid. Jared Kushner, who lives at 666 Main Street or whatever, is not a Jew. He's a Satanist, just pretending so that you... I don't know. I bet, I don't have insider knowledge on this, but I bet in, like, China or something, who doesn't care about Jews, whatever group, marginalized group, has some degree of political clout, they claim to be that. Almost 100%. Because it's just a certain class of people that want to lie to gain political power. And that's what they do. And Zelensky has been, that's our whole government, and he was put in there by our government in 2014. Or I don't know, but the old Ukrainian regime was thrown down through a color revolution in 2014, which is why Putin took Crimea. And then he said, stop. And they were like, we're going to trust the USA. Will help us. Which you should never do, world, by the way. If the USA promises to protect you, just know that it won't. And that's one thing. This is one reason I suspect maybe Putin will push a little bit beyond Ukraine into a NATO country. Just as a gamble to say, like, you're not going to do anything. And then if we don't do anything, that destroys NATO, because the whole point of NATO is they have Article 5 defense with the USA.
Yep.
And if someone tests that and it fails to happen, then NATO is effectively over, which is what Putin wants. And Putin knows that the USA cannot be trusted to keep its promises. He's dealt with the USA for his whole life.
Yeah. I mean, in the early 90s, the USA promised the Soviet Union that they would not expand eastward, and then they expanded eastward all the way to their border. So,
yeah, and look, I'm not going to fight against America or be a traitor to America.
no, of course not.
But also, this is clearly the USA's fault.
Yeah.
And anyone who doesn't see that is not being honest, because if Syria is in our realm of influence, you can't claim that Ukraine isn't in Russia's.
Right.
It's so stupid. If you have the same rules for the world, unless we get special rules because reasons, then we can't have a base in Japan if they can't have a base right next door. The Soviet Union tried in Cuba, and we lost our minds over it. Yeah, but now instead of having a strong military where we could back up losing our minds, we have
the trainee brigade,
people in fursuits. Yeah. Which I don't know. Maybe that's camouflage. If you're dressed up like a fox in the woods,
might work in eastern Ukraine or western Ukraine.
Yeah, you just dress up like a polar bear, and you walk around with your fursona. Now they also do crinkling, so I don't know if that's not very stealthy.
What's crinkling?
It's where you wear diapers.
Are you kidding me?
No, the fursuits are. I learned about this at what was it? FurCon. Whatever the. Oh no. Rainfest, Furfest, something like that.
Are they doing this? Are they doing this because it's hard to get out of your suit and go to the bathroom, or are they doing it for sexual reasons?
Both. So the suit takes a long time to take off.
Yeah.
But then that attracts people that are in that to that for sexual reasons. Just like astronauts wear diapers, allegedly. Mm-hmm. Do you see how it all connects? It all connects. And so at Rainfest Furfest 2013, there was a giant problem with the diapers at the hotel. And that effectively shut down the furry community conference scene for like 2 years because of how bad there was a fire. It was a fire of diapers. It was so bad.
Wow.
So, and the suits get sweaty.
Yeah.
It's just not. Imagine the mascots at like Disney World who are also wearing diapers, running around a hotel trying to have sex with each other.
Yuck.
And that's who's fighting our wars.
The Disney suits have air conditioning in them.
Yeah. Which we need to figure out because I tried to get that for my helmet and I mean, I can do it, but then how do you speak into the microphone without the wind?
It's a problem.
Sound.
Yeah, it's a problem.
We need to get with Smash Mouth or whoever it was that wears the helmets. Daft Punk. Same thing. When they were up there with their machines going, "Hey son, you're a rock star. Get your game on. Get played." That was his favorite song of the Ghost of Kiev while he was attacking Russians, by the way.
I didn't know Daft Punk performed that song.
I don't think they do. I think that's Chumbawamba or whoever I said.
Smash Mouth.
It doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all teardrops and rain. But yeah, how does space work? How does space work? I don't, and this is relevant. I'm gonna make a point here. It's not just me arguing about space again. It's an important point. How would you like? Wouldn't you just they show like their water, like when they drink water, it's just floating around in droplets, and they have to like chomp at it like a Pac-Man in the air.
Yep.
Like, wouldn't that be happening to the water in your mouth? Wouldn't that be happening? Wouldn't your stomach acid be floating up your esophagus all the time?
Yeah,
I mean, I know there's like sphincters.
Heartburn. Well, I mean, because gas is produced in your stomach through all the fermentation going on in there. And so you
right.
burp it up. And so if there's zero gravity, you're just going to be burping up stomach acid all the time. Because the liquid is supposed to be in the bottom and the gas is supposed to be at the top.
Exactly. The liquid is supposed to be at the bottom and the gas is supposed to be at the top. But that wouldn't be true in zero gravity, right? And so, not to mention all the other processes of liquids and solids moving through your body.
Yeah.
That would seem to require a constant downward pull.
Yeah, I think there's at several junctions, there are places in your digestive system where liquids and solids and gases have to separate via gravity.
Yes, and if they don't, to say the least, you're going to be gassy. And probably solidy. It would get gross.
Yeah.
Stuff would start moving the wrong way. If there's no up and down, things aren't going to move the right direction. And I know that your digestive system is full of smooth muscle that like undulates to move stuff around. Yes, of course. But it also relies on gravity to an not insignificant extent. So, did Chris What's-His-Face really stay up in space for like 3 years or whatever he says? You know that guy.
No,
Longest time in space.
he was up there for 3 years. We're to believe.
I don't know. No, 437 days.
Okay.
No, American record.
I mean, this is still a long time.
That was a Russian. To note, that was a Russian.
What if the Russians' threat to crash the ISS into America was like they're hinting that they may embarrass us about the space program?
Well, that's why they have to go to nuclear war, or pretend nuclear war, because again, that's also fake. But Chris Hadfield, the liar, he pretends that he's up. He's the first. Here's how you know it's wrong. His claim to fame is he's the first Canadian to perform an extravehicular activity in space. So, no Canadian could ever stop their gay rave in rollerblades in Ottawa long enough to do that, right? So that's how you know it can't be true, because he would be trying to get on the space shuttle, and he would be like, "You can't wear rollerblades into the rocket," and he'd be like, "But I'm Canadian," and so it wouldn't work, right? It just is impossible. And he's been on Joe Rogan and stuff, and it's not true. But I think he was up there for like 300 and something, at least over a year. And I don't see how you could possibly be in zero gravity for a year, and not have extreme medical problems. It doesn't work. I mean, they used to just be like, well, wouldn't your muscles atrophy? And then they said, oh, we invented some weird rubber band deadlift system that we do in space. Have you seen them do their rubber band deadlifts?
I have.
It's silly. But that also wouldn't, that doesn't help. That's not. So, my point is, and also, what about the space shuttle? Do you remember we had a thing called the space shuttle?
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you remember why we had a space shuttle?
I think we tried to make a more economical way of going to space, but instead we made the most expensive one ever.
Well, that's what they say. But the space shuttle was supposed to be a vehicle for both launching satellites and repairing satellites, primarily.
Okay.
That was what they told us it was for years. They would go up and they'd have a guy, and he'd have a little screwdriver, and he would fix a satellite or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the satellites need. I mean, presumably there's just floating in a vacuum. Why do they? I mean, if they get hit by a meteor or something, then they're just, I presume, just dead. You have to replace. I mean, if a micrometeor shoots through a satellite at a bazillion miles an hour or whatever, I think it's probably just over. Yeah. You have to have another one.
Maybe you could replace a solar panel or something.
Maybe you could repair the solar panel, maybe. Although, I mean, can you imagine fixing a solar panel with giant space gloves on?
Yeah, it'd be tough.
In space where everything's floating and you have to rig up wiring and stuff. Doubtful. But let's say that you could somehow do this. You have special tools. You have a special screwdriver that you can hold and grip in your super glove hand in 0G while you're floating around, and you never drop the screw and it just floats away to infinity. Which would be a problem. But, and you're doing it outside, tethered by a rope to a spacecraft that has an awning that opens the doors. There's some weird thing. Remember they had that thing?
The whole middle of it opened up.
The whole middle of it would open up to space. And then... So let's pretend that you're doing that. So first of all, I don't know why satellites need repair. They don't rust. There's no rain. There's no air for anything to grow. There's no... What are they doing? What is wrong with them? Either they are hit by a meteorite and dead, or they're fine.
Maybe they need a new battery.
But they're all solar powered, allegedly. Right? or, which is another thing. Could the solar power provide enough? But anyway, I had to yawn. It makes me so tired to think about. They maybe they get turned wrong. Maybe after a time, their like orientation drifts, and you have to go up there and like shift it, like he's adjusting the satellite dish, but in space. That makes sense. Yeah. Maybe you might could tell me that you do that. I don't know, but it doesn't. That was the whole point. You can find article after article after article going back into the days of the space shuttle, where they were like, "Listen." And I think the space shuttle was like, it didn't take, the first one allegedly took off in like 81, maybe? Early 80s, 82, 81, somewhere. And it would go up and it would repair satellites, and this was crucial, and it would like repair I remember it repaired the Hubble telescope. That was amazing. It went up there, and like the Hubble telescope, the mirror was slightly off. And so they flew up there and they replaced the mirror in space with another space mirror. And then the telescope was not blurry anymore. And it saved the $1 bazillion Hubble telescope.
Wow.
Right? And then in 2011, we decided we didn't need to repair satellites anymore. We can just discontinue that thing. Mm-hmm. And how do we do it now? Nobody knows. Do satellites no longer need repairing? I guess not. Who's going up there to repair them? SpaceX. No, they aren't. They haven't put anyone in space yet. They admit that.
No, they said they sent 2 guys to the space station.
I mean,
allegedly.
I mean, whatever. They haven't. What I mean is they haven't. They don't like go up and like do space.
They're not doing anything productive up there.
Right. That's what I mean. I know they claim to have gone to but whatever. They haven't said that they're going up to fix that. That's never. No one's done a SpaceX spacewalk on it, right? And so how are we repairing the satellites? That was such a crucial thing to do for years. We had to go up there and repair the satellites. They always were doing it. They had the little hand. They were outside spacewalking. They were tinkering around on the satellite. What were they doing? And now that doesn't need to happen anymore. For 10 years plus, we haven't known of that. And then, the Russians take us up. Oh, the Russians. We go up with the Russians now. Okay, so the Russians have a really vested interest in helping us repair our military satellites. That's right. Of course they would do that and help us. Right? Of course they want to. I mean, and the space shuttles just went away totally. I mean, if they were that useful, wouldn't I don't know, the Air Force keep one of them so they could go up and, because they have a ton of military satellites. Allegedly.
Well, now they have the X-37B tiny space shuttle drone thing.
Yeah, now it's a robot. But I don't think they've ever claimed that goes up and fixes.
No, satellites. They don't talk about what that does.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. It does. And so if fixing all these things, I mean, does the next Hubble not need to be repaired ever? What if that, I mean, we have other satellites in space, allegedly, and other telescopes. What's going on? What's going on? Why? How does this work? And how could they be in space that long with all the floating issues in your stomach? And what are we talking about? How does it? Has any of that ever? Did anyone ever go to space ever? See,
Shatner and Bezos went.
And yeah, Shatner and Bezos went. And that's people are like, oh, but Bezos went. Oh, so you want Bezos to be your guide. Always let Jeff Bezos be your guide. So, Anyway, my point in saying all that is space is probably a big fraud, and for reasons. And the Russians have been one of our biggest helpers in perpetuating that fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yep. It does. None of the story makes sense about the space and the space shuttle and what happened to it and why it's up there and how you could do that and what it would be. None of it. And if you paid attention over the years, the story changed like all the time. Like it was like, I remember they went through a phase where they couldn't decide like how you would go to the bathroom in space. And like, then they settled on that there was like they had like vacuum tubes that you would put your genitals inside of a vacuum nozzle and turn it on.
Sounds dangerous.
And then you would relieve yourself because otherwise, but see, for a while they just used diapers because it would just go into the diaper and be absorbed. Mm-hmm. Although I doubt seriously that absorption works the same in zero gravity too. I think probably droplets are going to be floating up off of that. Like if you had a wet towel, and they even showed this in space, if you have a wet towel in space, like, and you wring it out a little bit, the droplets just fly around. Remember? Right. So if you're wearing a diaper in space, that's not gonna, it's not gonna work too well because you're moving around. It's gonna wring out some liquid, and it's just gonna be embarrassing. And the space shuttle should have a great yellow tinge around it now. Or the space station.
Well, I've heard it smells terrible.
Yeah. And then, that does it. But then they decided that there was a vacuum system of some kind. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think it works. But my point in saying that is, if it doesn't work and if it's a fraud, the Russians have been helping perpetuate that fraud.
Yes.
More than most people. Mm-hmm. This is why I try to tell people that all of this is orchestrated. It doesn't mean that the war is not real or that people aren't dying or that they aren't going bang, bang and shooting at each other. Although a lot of it is just propaganda and made up, but certainly not all of it. This has been like Putin and Biden are on the same side ultimately.
Okay. Because they are bound up in the pact of fake space.
They're bound up in the pact of the offerings of the demons.
Okay.
Yes. And I don't know to what degree they even know that. Maybe I can't help but think that they both know something is wrong about space.
So you're saying that whatever this coordination is, it's happening at such a level that most of the actors on the stage aren't aware of it or aren't fully aware of it or something.
Yeah, they're only aware of it in pieces. Okay. I think. I think there's very few that have a full view of the. There's only a few blind men with their hands groping the entire elephant. If you know what I mean.
So what if So this has been going on since since
Babylon.
Well, I guess the U.S.-Russia thing has been going on since the early days of the Soviet Union and the Cold War. So what if Putin wants out of this deal, and that's what all this is about?
Well, if Putin wanted out of the deal, he would. I think he would have to. I don't think you get out of the deal by further, because what is happening is they are right now engaged in a grand act of consent harvesting, and I think that he is facilitating that. Okay. And what consent harvesting, and I wrote about this in a post I made on the Substack, matsumoto.substack.com. Everyone go subscribe, pay money. It's good. And they have forgotten Dharma. It's on Black Magic in World War III. So, this is a bit. It's not a difficult concept actually. There's this scene. So there are rules to the universe, right? Of which the physical laws that we know in science are but the most basic. And there are higher laws that govern the interactions of living things and souls. One of those laws is, for lack of a better word, because I do think in this case the sort of Hindu terms match up pretty good, like dharma and karma. Mm-hmm. And there is something known as transference. Are you familiar with transference?
Only from reading your Substack post about this.
Okay. Give me an overview of transference. Read back to me what I said.
It's like the idea of a scapegoat where the moral debt can be placed on another. For example. And this
is central to this concept of dharma, or of how, like, of natural law, that your karma can be transferred. Because sin, debt, karma is like the same idea. Can be transferred is, in fact, the entire central theme of Christianity, because the idea is that somehow our guilt is transferred to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And he willingly takes that on. And so if transference was not possible, then sacrifice would not have been a thing. But the idea is that you can... So, like, you have this law, this moral code you're supposed to live by, but you don't. You transgress against it. And so some of the things that you do call for death or punishment. But that's not good, because then everyone in the camp would eventually be dead. So what do? You can place your sin debt, your karma, your bad karma, onto another living thing. An animal, usually, sometimes plants, and you can kill them instead. And this is a scapegoat. This because it's a literal goat that you make into the bearer of your sins, and then you would kill it. Which is why Christ is identified as a lamb, because sacrificial lamb. Same idea. And if transference were not possible, this wouldn't make sense. Right? And so you can transfer your debt from one being onto another being. You can also, by the way, because karma can be good or bad, transfer your blessings onto another being through other means. But you can transfer your karma onto someone else. And that's the whole idea of Jesus. But so magicians, and this is look, guys, look. This is some deep stuff here. I'm not claiming I'm not going to claim this is 100% accurate, but this is what I have come to believe is pretty much what's going on. And what I come to believe, because I want to make a claim about it, because that would be, you'll see why. But I think this is probably true. So magicians, actual ones, not the stage performers, by understanding God's law extremely well, they can do evil without experiencing the bad karma from it, because they transfer it onto their subjects. Okay? And that's what they're trying to do.
So the consent component is the vehicle for transference. The consent component,
you need, because it has to balance.
Okay.
It has to balance. And they showed you this in The Witcher show. I don't know if you've seen it, The Witcher show.
I have not.
So there's this Netflix show called The Witcher, and it's good. It has the guy that plays Superman in it. The Henry Cavalry or something, whatever his name is, Caviar, Henry Caviar. He plays the main guy, but there's, I mean, it's a violent show and heavily like pornographic in its sex scenes, but. It's an interesting show. And there's one scene where they're at a magic school. Okay. And they're teaching the young witches how to do magic. And so they're all around their little desks. And the head witch there's on each desk is a stone and then a little bouquet of flowers. And so the head witch says, use this incantation to levitate the stone off your desk. And everyone's trying, blah, 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 blah. And this one girl succeeds. This young black witch, because black girls are magic.
Clearly.
Right? As we've said many times. And so she levitates, and she's all excited. She's like, I'm doing it. And then her left hand withers and becomes like 100 years old.
Yee.
And then and she screams, and the rock falls down. And the head witch is not upset about this. She's like, well, you got what you deserved. Because she did. That was her karma, basically. The head witch says there is no getting anything for free. Everything has to balance. If you want to act outside the bounds of nature, that will come back upon you unless you transfer it into someone else. So she demonstrates. She picks up the bouquet of flowers. She chants the thing, levitates the stone, and then the bouquet of flowers dies in her arm instead of it coming back on her. That is transference, and that's what they have to do. Otherwise, they would suffer the bad consequences of their actions. And when this happens, when they mess up, and they call that blowback in the political sphere. You get blowback, it falls back on you, you get blamed, you suffer the consequences. And so what they do is they have to get the consequences to go onto other people. And this is why people can do the Iraq War. The dark magicians can do the Iraq War. They can lie about why we're there. They can lie about who did it. They can lie about everything. They can lie about its purpose. They can lie about when we're leaving and how good it's going to be, and nothing will happen to anybody that was involved in all that stuff. It will only happen to the people on the ground doing the actions, because they are experts at transfer. Look, guys, there's a reason DARPA sounds so much like Dharma. That's true. There's a reason DARPA sounds so much like Dharma, because it's weaponized. It's the weaponized karmic effects. And does that sound crazy? No. Not any more crazy than the Ghost of Kiev. And you listen to that. So, okay, so they have to, and the way you do this, if you want to get away with doing evil and not have any negative effects come upon your person, you have to have a scapegoat, and that scapegoat is usually you, my friends, the listeners. This is why pornography is free online and other things, because and this is why DARPA invented the internet, is to affect Dharma. See, it's all falling into place. Just like your crinkly diapers at FurFest or on the space shuttle. It all comes together.
Why is pornography being free on the internet resultant of this?
Do you not understand yet?
I don't.
Have you been with me so long and yet you do not have faith? Okay, so okay, well, so it works like this. You can't just kill a guy.
Okay.
That would bring a sin debt. That would bring bad karma, and you'd have to pay for that. But, if the guy is guilty enough to deserve death, then you can. For instance, if he's broken into your home and is trying to kill you, you can kill him, and there's no sin there.
Okay.
Like, there's no, debt of sin. There's sin in the sense of, death and having to kill someone is always not in God's ideal world. But there's no negative effect that falls on you, right?
Right.
Likewise, a serial axe murderer could be executed without the judge, jury, or executioner incurring any karmic debt for his demise.
Okay.
Because he was guilty enough to deserve it. Alternatively, someone can voluntarily accept that bad karma without anything coming onto you. Like Jesus did. He voluntarily accepts the karma of death from other people. And that's why Jesus offered no legal defense of himself, even though he could have and easily won in doing so. He was consenting to having the sins of others transferred onto himself.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? Okay. Now, so you can either have guilt enough to... So you can do an action to a person if they're guilty enough to deserve it, or if they say that you can, if they consent to having it work. but all things have to balance. So let's say you want to do something to someone, but they're not guilty enough for that. They're a little guilty, but not guilty enough. Then maybe you need some guilt plus some consent.
Okay.
Right? Maybe you need a little bit of guilt and a little bit of consent. And so you have to balance the scales. Imagine the action you want to do to them is this much weight. And on the other side, you need a balancing amount of consent and guilt. So what you can do, this is why they always have to tell you. Because they're consent harvesting. In little bitty ways, all the times they show you all the things that don't make sense, like I'm in the ISS and I have a harness, clearly if you pay attention, or Biden's head is a bobble screen in front of it going through a microphone. And every time you ignore it, and every time you disbelieve the clear evidence of your eyes, you're saying, I want to go along with this story. And you're just giving a little bit of consent every time, a little bit of consent. This is why they could shut down the borders during COVID, because they got you to ask for it in the previous election.
Ah, okay.
Right? You always have to by your words, you'll be justified. By your words, you're condemned. So you asked for it with Trump, and they said, okay, here you go. Borders closed. That's not what I meant. You said it. No, not. You know. Or being labeled a domestic terrorist for disagreeing with the government. I didn't want that. That's what you asked for. You cheered it on after 9/11. Cheered it on. But not for me. For people named Abi al-Dulabad. Sorry. It doesn't work like that. And what they're doing now, see, when the people make up these stories, they make up lies about like how a grandmother can trap Russians in her bathroom and light them on fire. And you cheer and you're like, yes, you're saying that behavior is good. You're promoting brutalization, and then you are allowed under the karmic laws to be brutalized freely because you're consenting that behavior is okay. This is what it's all about. This is why they build up these things. This is why they build up the anger. This is why they have to have this big buildup before any giant bloodshed happens, because you have to, if they just went out and tried to kill you, it would not work as well. They would experience blowback. They would get harmed as well.
Now, it is interesting. I mean, seeing, like nerds on Reddit suggesting that captured Russian soldiers should be placed in the road in front of advancing Russian tanks and camouflaged, to be run over by their own countrymen. I mean, that's sort of a bloodthirsty response is, it's harming the person saying it more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. And that allows the demons to say, he said this was okay. He said that when it happens to you, it's like, well, look, I mean, he said this was acceptable behavior. Because you don't get to, by the measure you use, you will be measured. That's how it always goes. And so that's why you have to be, like, there's that, everything in the Bible tells you this. Like, God is in heaven, you're on earth, so let your words be few. Like, don't be so eager to, like, say things. Because your consent matters about how you judge is how you will be judged. So this consent harvesting is a big part of the equation. They want you to agree, and because they need to balance the scales. Okay, so you've got consent, but you don't fully consent to it, right? But then they have some guilt on the side. They build up the whole population with guilt. Pornography's everywhere. Greed is everywhere. Everyone's angry about Facebook posts and mad. And everyone, so they build up lust, they build up anger, they build up hatred, they build up greed. Everyone's chasing the moon with Bitcoin. The greed, everyone's jealous because of Instagram. And so DARPA builds up negative karmic guilt on one side. And then they harvest your consent on the other until they have enough of the scales to balance, and then they can do the thing. And then they're clear. They walk away scot-free. And they will say, well, they did it to themselves, and they will be right. And it is sleazy, but God allows it because technically technically they are operating within the rules. This is why Pontius Pilate washed his hands of. He had to do that publicly. Because what he does is he's doing transference too. He says, "Look, I wash my hands of this. You all see this, right? I'm washing my hands. I'm doing a ritual. You can see me washing my hands of the guilt of this." And everyone in the crowd understands what is happening, and they say, "Yes, his blood be on us and on our children, not on you." He's transferring the guilt of his thing. He says, "You want to do this? Go ahead, but it's not on me." And they say, "Yeah, fine, we take it." And they do. They consent to take it on, right? And so this is what all sacrifice was about in the past, was this transference idea. This is why the Aztecs would sacrifice people on a pyramid and roll their heads down the steps or whatever. And the weird thing is they got a lot of their human sacrifices to do. People have an overly violent view of the Aztecs, and they were violent, but like a lot of their victims consented to have it done to them, bizarrely. It was seen as a great honor. Like if you were chosen as the virgin to be sacrificed or as the warrior to be sacrificed, they would adorn you in all of these flowers, and they would feast you, and a male that was sacrificed would be given sex with like 70 virgins or whatever. I mean, it's the same thing in Islam. It's the same idea of going willingly to jihad.
Okay.
That's like a made up consent thing, because it's like, well, go do the sacrifice and you will get the great, thing. Except they would give you sex now in life. Mm-hmm. And you would be like, yeah, this is great. And you would sometimes be treated that way for like 3 years before they actually did it.
And then wouldn't they drug him up before they sacrificed him too?
Right.
Yeah.
And they drug him up, and they would take him up to the thing and sacrifice them. And so there was not this idea that the Aztecs were just taking people is not really what was happening, because you can't just do that. If you did that, if you were just grabbing people off the streets and killing them, God's justice would fall on you very quickly. But if you get them to want it to happen, and they agree to it, then the debts don't fall on you nearly as hard, if at all. That's not to say what you're doing is right, but it is like this scale of balance of like how a thing can happen, like what you actually pay for, like what you actually have to,
at least in
be punished for.
this life.
Right. I think that because what you're.
Because
I like the old Egyptian thing of like, before God, your heart has to be as light as a feather. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think you'll pass the test.
Yeah.
But you don't get in the realm of cause and effect. You don't get the effect for all of if someone else takes on the effect.
Right.
Because there's only one effect. Like and if that goes, it's like if you are in some sort of mechanism and there's some amount of momentum, but you have a device that diverts the momentum onto someone else, there isn't a second momentum. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Okay.
There isn't a second karma. So if the effect of your actions goes onto somebody else, then that's it. It's just gone. Is any of this making sense?
So it's kind of the concept of, why do these people always get away with it? Or they seem to. Right. And this is why you must be wise as serpents. You're trying to apply some rules to that phenomena.
Yeah, and this is why you have to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Mm-hmm. That's why that command is there. Because you have to be wise as the serpents trying to trick you.
Yeah.
They're trying to lie to you, and they're trying to get you to. And then so you need to not consent, but you also have to have the innocence enough where they can't get you with it. Because
the traps are guilt or consent, and you have to.
And it's a combination. It's a combination.
So being a dove keeps you free of the guilt, and being a serpent keeps you free of the consent.
Well, being as wise as a serpent.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. And so, yes. And so, like, because, like, what they're doing now, like, so everyone consented to a mode of living in COVID that will now be extended to, because if they can lock you down over a cold, what can they do over the threat of thermonuclear war?
Right.
But you already consented that they had that ability. You said, yeah, this is good. And so now they're going to give you another reason.
Is consent revocable in your model here?
Consent is revocable, but it's yes, you can, and that is largely what repentance is about.
Yes.
And the theory of transference, this is why confession has always been a thing, because if you confess it, then you're transferring that guilt off of yourself onto somebody else, onto Jesus, ultimately.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can certainly do that. And you can also consent for other people that you have charge of. Like a parent can consent to things for their underage child.
Mm-hmm.
Both on a legal level and also on a spiritual level. This is why you can give up your baby to ball to be burned or to be aborted in a clinic, because you have authority over them on a spiritual level. Now, are you guilty? Of course, but like that, you can consent for them.
Right.
For that to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And this is also why, so you have, and this is in the Bible also, a group, and the group is hard to define sometimes, shares a karmic load, which is why you share, like a nation can be guilty.
Yeah.
A nation shares a destiny. A nation shares a fate. Because, and it's a bit, for people raised on rugged individualism, that can be a bit hard to understand how that can be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically, if something is going bad in your civilization and you do not say anything about it, you consented to it to some degree. It doesn't even have to be a big showy thing, just like a public, like, I don't agree with this, I'm not going to do that.
No, I felt that big time in the early times of COVID now. And I had to go through that whole process of repentance and speaking out against something that I heretofore had consented to. I mean, I experienced that. That was hard. That was a hard time for me.
Yeah. And if you do that enough, if you separate yourself enough from their karma, you become a different entity. You become the Judah that splits off from Israel. You become the whatever that splits off from the whatever. But you do share a fate, a karmic fate that goes forward, and that's why the diapers at Furfest matter. Space Station. See, I also have something. So this is why I can talk about this, because this is another karmic rule.
Mm-hmm.
I have, in this capacity as a show host. Well, we both do, really. We have something called jester's privilege.
Oh, what's that?
Well, because this is why I have to be overly funny sometimes, or like over exaggerate. Because if I make claims about something, right, I can be karmically held responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I make it such that it is obviously absurd on some level, then you know that it's not like an authoritative declaration. Without me having to say every time, like, like, listen, guys.
This is not legal advice.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. This is not karmically legal. This is not, right? I'm giving you a thing, but also like, but I'm also slaying the ghost of Kiev with Sunflower Grandma. And that lets you know that, and if you're not smart enough to understand that, then that's sort of on you. And sometimes I've fallen into that. Like, this has been I've operated with jester's privilege throughout my whole life. And some people don't understand it. They get mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a problem sometimes in life. I'll be like, I don't know. I'll be in college, say, and I'll make a joke about cutting the brake lines of the bus.
Yeah.
And this will cause a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it in the context of also something about like how that was going to be how I promoted justice for AIDS victims, because they were picked up last by the bus. Like, so that was not, so it was attached to an obviously absurd statement.
Okay.
That is like, well, it's obviously that's not serious, right? That's obvious, but there's a grain of truth in it, right? And that you can also have the same jester's privilege when you are doing a stage production or writing a novel. Or you don't have to like have all these disclaimers if you're writing a novel or if you're doing Shakespeare's play, because it's understood this is a work of fiction. It has truth in it, but we're not making claims about any specific person, about any this or that, right?
Okay.
Which is why Hollywood is the means of telling you things and conditioning the populace, because they have jester's privilege and the karmic debt doesn't come on them for telling you lies.
Ah.
Because it's not supposed to be real. But see, like, what you do is, like, they make a show like John Wick, say. And John Wick gets you to root for a guy going around brutally murdering people for killing a puppy.
Yeah.
Now, that is when you cheer that on, you're saying this is good. This is good. Like, they didn't tell you to cheer it on. They just made a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided to identify with the protagonist and cheer it on. This is why there is something to like being careful what you watch, and like, and I'm not trying to be a buzzkill or anything, but you can watch it without like being like, yeah, this is what needs to happen.
Well, right. It's probably healthier spiritually and psychologically to watch like gory war footage than it is to watch Hollywood gore, because the Hollywood stuff comes with like a moral commitment of some kind, or you're like cheering for it. And like some people, I don't know, people that as bloodthirsty as everybody's been on Reddit lately, I don't know. It's pretty hard to watch like war footage and the horrors that happen and like cheer for it and feel excited about it. But if you watch that in a movie, like you said, you can cheer for it.
Right. Yeah. And this is like the movie, like the show Dexter. Let's get them to cheer for a serial killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get them to cheer for that. Let's get them to cheer for like vigilantism. Let's get them to do, and then you can do those things to them because it's a form of consent harvesting without you bearing the guilt of lying to them and saying it's good, because you're acting you're doing a stage play. You're Hollywood. You know, traditionally magic wands are made from the wood of a holly tree.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's there, Hollywood. And entertainment means literally mind control. Enter inside, tain from tenio, to grasp, mint from men's mind. To enter and can grasp the mind. Which is what a movie does. You get engrossed in it, your mind is seized. You don't think about anything else but the movie. It's all magic. Right? So, and that's why they always have to tell you, because if they make it a little obviously absurd, like they do with all the space stuff, then it relieves them a little bit of the guilt of lying.
Mm-hmm.
It relieves them a little bit of the and so I guarantee you the people at DARPA are incredibly well versed in the divine law,
Mm-hmm.
and they use it to evil. They use it for evil, which makes they will ultimately be held into account for that.
Right.
But here on Earth, they can, and I believe in their own minds, they think that just before death, they can get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they think like, oh, well, I just confess it before death and repent. Like, gamble, I guess. It's a gamble, but they think I can use it for my gain here. And then they're trying to play, what was that Marvel character? Constantine. Who would like use the laws of Satan to fight Satan.
Okay.
And then for his own personal gain, and then he would always trick the demons right before he got sucked into hell. With some like law of magic.
Okay.
And that's what they're hoping to do. But yeah, so anyway, that's my take on Ukraine.
Kind of a high spiritual level take.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get people to see like they are on the same side on a deeper level, because they are, because they help each other, and I mean, if you want to persist in believing space is real because you like to be an 8-year-old boy going, woo, rocket ships, fine. But at least, how about this? Both Russia and America and China are all on the same page that global warming is a real thing that's happening, and the sea levels are rising, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
right? And they're getting you to consent to your existence is bad and you having children is bad. And that's why they can continue to try and do things to you to minimize your amount of children that you have. Because you've already said it's bad. It wouldn't be good if I had that.
Mm-hmm.
You agreed, right? So you're, and so now somebody on Earth should realize, like, hey, you know what? The Black Sea here at our port in the Danube or whatever, and I don't really care about Asian geography. It's all just a big steppe or something. There's a big steppe, and then there's the Black Sea, and there's people going in India, and that's the whole of it. Right? I think that's fair.
Okay.
So the Danube is our port at the Danube is the same place it's always been. Obama bought a house in Martha's Vineyard on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the sea level isn't going to swamp his house in 5 years.
Right.
But he said that anyway. Putin did the same thing. They're all playing the same consent game on a higher level. Right? On a higher level, but
now is the managing this operation, is that the job of the visible political systems, or is this more conducted by other people?
Well, this is why what's his face? The guy in England who's like Alex Jones but worse. Mm-hmm. Hold on, his name just flew out of my mind.
David Icke?
Yes. This is why he talks about reptilians.
Okay.
Because the serpents are actually there.
Mm-hmm.
They're the demons, and they control things in the background. And at some level, at some point, and I'm not sure where, I'm sure that there must be a communication between that realm and some living human being who takes the orders.
Klaus. It's Klaus.
I doubt it's anyone that is visible to us as a person.
All right.
I think it's probably, but I don't know where that happens. Maybe David Icke knows where that happens. We should get him on the show. I'm going to reach out to David Icke and have him come on the show.
That'd be quite an event.
Yeah, and so I think he'd probably have an answer to that. He'd say, "Oh yeah. It takes place in Zurich or something." Where is the Danube? Did I just make that up? Is that near the Black Sea?
I don't think so.
The Danube. It's or is that in Germany?
I think it's in Germany.
No, that's not in Germany.
Oh.
Danube River. Oh look, it's in the Volga, Russia. It was it's a place in Russia. Okay.
You were close.
It flows through Central Europe. It does border on Germany. I was right on all accounts. Look at that. Oh no, wait, it doesn't go in Russia. It goes through no, it doesn't. It goes from Germany, the southern border of Germany, through Romania into the Mediterranean or whatever, the Black Sea. So it does border Ukraine. So I was probably right, though. Still, some level. What are your thoughts on Ukraine?
Well, on last week's show, I asked the question, why is Russia appearing to hold back its military power, specifically with some of its really cool surface-to-air missile systems?
Well, I'll tell you one is because some small portion of it is fake.
Okay.
Just propaganda, but not. They do have some cool tech.
Well,
but some of the stuff is just made up.
Well, then after I recorded that show, I just started reading and thinking about it, and this idea is starting to form in my brain that, and I think Russia and other Asian powers have realized that you can't stop NATO unless you give these neutral countries an alternative that is appealing to them, that offers them something that NATO wants to offer. And
now, what can they offer that is better than cross-dressing men?
Well, so
what can they possibly offer?
I think they're setting up. I think they're setting up a situation globally and using Ukraine as a catalyst for making these conditions happen, wherein that Russia, maybe I guess the BRICS countries, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, maybe a few others, are setting up conditions using the Ukraine conflict as a catalyst. And the preparations for this have been going on for a few years now, setting up conditions where the Atlantic power bloc, NATO countries, are going to be in severe economic straits. And the BRICS countries are going to have a lot of resources that are critically scarce for a year or two. And they're going to use that leverage to form a new monetary union, something like the euro, but that also has a military mutual defense alliance like NATO. And so the reason I say this is I've been observing trends and behaviors of these countries with regards to oil and energy production and storage and distribution, fertilizer production. So Russia produces like 60% of the world's fertilizer used for industrial agriculture. And our sanctions of Russia are going to necessarily create huge scarcities of both food and the ability to create food, fertilizer, in the Western countries. Also, China hoarding food and grain. All these countries have, well, not all of them, but definitely China and India have been hoarding up fertilizer and grain supplies for the past year and a half, 2 years. Especially China. They have a massive trove of like strategic food reserves.
Now, wait a minute. You're telling me that Russia has not run out of food in the first 24 hours of their military campaign they've been planning for years?
No. They're doing just fine on food.
You're telling me that they aren't having to go door to door asking old babushkas for borscht and then being fed laxatives and burned alive inside of bathrooms. You're telling me that's not true.
I am. And in fact,
I have trouble believing you, sir. I saw this on TikTok.
If we enter a situation globally,
how could a Russian soldier get out of an Eastern European bathroom door? They're made of the solidest cork you've ever seen. If it was, they'd be locked in there forever. I don't.
No, I assert that they are not as helpless as they seem on TikTok. I assert
but
that.
Iron Man was in the sky.
Yeah.
There was an Iron Man. Did you see the Iron Man?
I did not see the Iron Man.
There was a tweet was like someone posted legitimately a picture of what appeared to be a man in the sky and said someone had a makeshift Iron Man suit and was fighting Russian jets. Someone claimed this is fact, and I believe it. If you want to tell me it's not true, you may as well spit on the memory of George Floyd right now. Say his name.
Waynell Sexton.
Right. Say his name, Waynell Sexton. BJ Dichter. Save us. Lead our rebellion on our rollerblades. BJ Dichter. That's if you guys didn't catch it. That's the name of the guy allegedly in charge of the trucker protest in Canada. Is that still happening?
Yeah,
did they just drop that?
in your absence, I talked about. I did a debriefing of the trucker protest last week, and we talked a lot about BJ Dichter.
Yeah, is that still happening? Did they just drop that?
That's all been rolled up. It's we're doing war now. That's
okay. It's just everyone went home.
But the Canadian government still has their Patriot Act powers now. So
of course they do.
That'll be the lasting part of the trucker protest.
Yeah, of course they do. That's why I told people don't do it. It doesn't. I'm trying to get people to see that they are being duped because they think that they're dealing with human beings, but they're actually dealing with fallen angels.
Right. Yeah. So
Like,
last
you
week
have
on
to
the show,
realize that.
the one of the points was don't transfer your value system. Don't project that onto your opponent because he doesn't have
Right.
he doesn't have your value system.
He doesn't even have your physical being.
We didn't
your,
quite get to demons in that segment.
He doesn't have your blood type. He doesn't have blood.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with an enemy without blood, my friend. What are you doing? Honking at it. Honk! You're not O negative. Honk! And then they just have a big orgy. It's so frustrating. Yeah. What were you saying? I wish I was a BRICS country. Like, I would love to be in India. I would fit in so well if I lived in India. I wouldn't do well I don't think I'd fit in well in China. South Africa, maybe. Russia, no. Brazil, yes. If I was in India or Brazil, my life would be probably a lot better. Do you agree?
I don't know.
Like,
I've never been to India.
If I just, the great thing about India is no matter what, there's so many people, and there's always someone doing something weird at any time, wherever you look. You'll be like just going to the market, and there'll be like someone right over to the side of it, just like burning a corpse and throwing it in the Ganges. Like, literally, they're like, some crazy funeral,
Yeah.
and they just hurl the corpse in the thing, and you're like, shouldn't this be like, I don't know, shouldn't there be like a permit or something? And they're like, no, you just, and then right next to it, like just barely upstream is a guy like bathing in the Ganges, just it's gross, it's full of pollution. He's like, this holy water, it heals me, and it's like, there's literally corpses floating by him. And he just doesn't care. And then there's some over on the other side, there's some guy worshiping a plant. And it's just, and then there's great curry, and it's just great. I love that kind of insanity.
Yeah, okay. You would fit in over there. Yeah.
I don't think you get that in China. I think China's very regimented.
Yeah, more conformist.
I think China's very, Brazil is a little bit of that craziness, but not nearly as bad. Theirs is more motivated by just pure poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Indians are like poor with a purpose. They're poor with a purpose. I don't know about South Africa.
No, South Africa's not in good shape.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Because the Great Reset, my friends, did you think the Great Reset was anything less than World War III?
Well, I think the Great Reset may have been... Part of that may be the transfer of the world economic situation to a two-pole sort of arrangement, and one of those poles is going to be centered around China and Russia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the monetary moves made, again, people are saying we have to do it. They have to get your consent to devalue your stuff. People are like, yeah, it's a good idea. The monetary moves to like block them from the SWIFT network, or shut them off from Apple Pay and Google.
Right.
That's
my big point. This is my point about the Ukraine sanctions and the response is because the actions we are taking are going
to make everyone in the U.S. much poorer.
Yes, but they are actively splitting the world economic system in half.
Yes, they are, and that's the point. They're trying to redo the monetary system.
Yeah. So if half the planet, so let's say China comes out in support of Russia, which they're already sort of doing that in little ways, and I think that's gonna continue.
Well, at least they didn't condemn Russia.
Everybody's and they've been actually saying some things in support of Russia and their point, their beef with NATO expansion.
I don't see how you can't. They're fighting Nazis.
Well, but my point here is that these sanctions and the removing countries from the SWIFT system and screwing with their banks and shutting off Apple Pay and all that stuff, China's already built, and China and Russia cooperatively have already built a settlement system to replace SWIFT. They just are having a hard time getting people to sign up for it. But if the world economy is broken and only the Western world is able to use SWIFT, and it's being used as leverage against everybody who is allied with Russia, well, those are the conditions under which we create that second pole of the global economy. And in the process, it is going to wreck the value of the dollar, because there are the number of dollars that we have basically reflects not just the value of the goods of our country, but the value of the goods of the whole world.
Right, because they all trade in it more or less.
And so after this change happens, the value of the dollar will then only reflect the value of the goods of the Western world, which is still considerable, but a lot less than it does now. And therefore, according to, rules of economics, the value of the dollar is going to take an incredible hit.
Which is good, by the way.
Well, it may be morally good, but it's going to suck.
No, it'll be great. When things get real poor, then people are like, well, you can be poor with a purpose, like India, or you can be poor and just sort of sad.
Well, I was thinking about the BRICS countries and a lot of the countries that are going to fall in with them. They have a large peasant class that we don't have in the West. And that peasant class is very comfortable with the idea of growing much of their own food and doing agriculture in addition to, working in a factory or whatever. So they've got a foot. The peasant classes of these countries have a foot in both the old world and the new world. Like in Russia, it's very common, unless you're a metropolitan urbanite sort of person, it's very common to live on a dacha, which is like a small household farm of a few acres, where you do a lot of intensive gardening and farming, and you may sell some things at market, but a lot of it is just you're growing a lot of your own food and producing a lot of your own protein. And this idea is really become popular with the American homesteading movement, is the Russian dacha model. So, but all these China, India, Russia, they all have that in their peasant class. In the West, we don't have that at all. We're totally integrated into the global food supply chain in almost every way, and everybody's in it. Like, even farmers would starve in America. American farmers would starve in this situation because all they do is just grow wheat with Monsanto supplied seed and fertilizer. Right? They don't.
Yeah, and they just grow the wheat. They don't know how to turn it into bread.
Yeah, that and you can't just eat wheat. You need vegetables, you need protein, and all that stuff. And nobody is producing that in America. I mean, a very small fraction of people actually produce out of their home an appreciable amount of what they eat. I mean, self-included. I'm trying, and it's a lot of work trying to build a dacha at my home.
Right,
but
you're not poor enough.
So right. But these people in these other countries, they're dirt poor. Like, if they're going to actually make it, they have to do this. And so they're comfortable with it. And so at the societal level, and also because of the preparations that these nations have been undertaking, they are going to do a lot better throughout this crisis than the West is. Especially if a few other strategic moves are made throughout the process. So if I'm right here, I know I've talked about 2022 is going to be a year of famine. I've talked about that on the show before, but that will be a sign that this is we are undergoing this process, is that there's going to be a huge disruption of food supplies in the West, and huge amounts of inflation, higher than what we've already seen.
I agree with you. I think it may take a little bit longer than this year.
Yeah, it'll probably take it'll take a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll start to see it this year. Mm-hmm. But look, so that you're like, oh, we're gonna have famine. Oh no, famine. Mm-hmm. We're gonna starve to death. No one's gonna have medicine. People aren't gonna be able to have clothes, mm-hmm. and you're all this gloom and gloom.
So you're saying I'm consenting to it?
No, I'm just saying you're not seeing the positive.
Okay,
which is where people are throwing bodies in the Mississippi while other people are being baptized.
Uh-huh.
Old hymnals, just like in India.
Right.
And we're just throwing... The Mississippi should become the Ganges, full of corpses, but also holy. And, dirty, but also everybody drinks it.
Right.
Just we could do that here, and it could be fine.
Yeah,
Everyone could be going like,
I agree with you that like the wealth of the West has become a curse.
yeah,
and we all live in aquariums, little bugman lifestyles in aquariums,
like Bane said in that movie.
What did he say?
Victory has defeated you.
Oh yes, no, it has.
Yeah.
It absolutely has. And I think just being poor has its hardships. But also being completely disconnected from creation, it has its hardships also. And we haven't counted those, but we've suffered them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to find a silver lining for Westerners in this prediction, but that might be one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the great Satan will start to fall apart a little bit, hopefully. I mean, it will, but it goes back to a multipolar world.
Yeah.
Which is okay. I mean, just that's inevitable.
I talked to some folks over the weekend that lived in Russia for a long time, and they're here now, and they want to move back to Russia because of the there's better freedom of speech and not as much political psychopathy in Russia as there is in America. Stew on that. I mean, they'd say, they'll openly kind of bemoan a lot of the public corruption that happens at the low levels out there. So, like,
yeah. But that's better because you can just bribe somebody. I mean, America's the worst at we have high-level corruption without any low-level corruption. I can't go bribe my sheriff.
Right.
I wish I could. If he would just take a bribe to allow me to speed, then I would be fine with Jeffrey Epstein's island.
Right, but
I mean, it would be okay.
That's the funny thing is like the high ups are corrupt in the West, but the low level people play by the rules, which is a good racket.
The low level people to be corrupt and the high level people to be upright and moral, and then that's work because then you can be like, listen, here's $100.
But really, these folks also lived in Ukraine for a while, and they said that the low level corruption in Ukraine is much worse than it is in Russia. In fact, Russia's cleaned it up, according to them, has cleaned up a lot over the past couple decades, to where it's a lot. It said it's a lot like living in America as far as economically and modern life, but there's no cancel culture stuff going on over there, and because they see the whole cancel culture and political correctness as there's no difference between that and the government censoring your speech. It's all like part of the same. It's like two sides of the same coin, and so their point was the freedom of speech that we enjoy in Russia is on net balance better than we enjoy in America, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, yeah, the Ukraine is everyone's just singing Havana in Ukraine. Because that's the original, that's what the Khazarian Empire probably was. What? And the Khazarians were the people who were not Jewish, who sort of mass converted into Jews just to be slimy. And that's where the Ashkenazi Jew thing came from. Is that.
Really?
If you look, the Khazarians, the Khazars, they were all, none of them were really ever cared about Judaism. And they did it specifically as a political move in like a war with the Turks, just to like gain curry favor. And then that class of people has existed ever since.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is all in Wikipedia even. Like the Khazarians and everyone in the Ukraine is a shyster. They all are. And again, people are like, oh, it's anti-Semitic. No, it's not. Even that is a word grabble. Like Semitic is a language group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not anti-language group. That's the dumb word. Just say, if you mean I'm anti-Jewish, they can't say that because I'm not anti-Jewish. They're just making up things and using word magic to be like, but it's really just like Bill Gates is also that.
Yeah.
Like, he's a grabbler. It's not Jews. It's people like, just take the vaccine and then you're going to be, give me the money, the student loans. Those people, whether they claim to be Jewish or not, that is one ethnic group in my head.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is a grabbler and a Khazarian. Bill Gates is. George Soros is. Zelensky is. And Jared Kushner is. And some of them use the Jewish shield and some of them don't. But the Khazarians, yeah, they were like fighting with the caliphates or whatever, and they and also like some Christians, and so they decided that they would all convert to Judaism to be like middle of the road between the two. So they could be like, oh, look, we're a little bit like you, but a little bit like you. Don't fight. And they just did that to be annoying.
Interesting.
That's why the Khazars happened. And that was in Ukraine. And so that's why when you land in the airport of Ukraine, until very recently when the Russians took over the airports, you would land in Ukraine and there would be a guy there with a little piece of paper. And it would be trying to get you to take out a loan, and then he would say, "This is for a Roth IRA," and he would give it to you, and then you would sign it, and then the whole airport would go ba ba da 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 da, and then and that was Ukraine.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone's ever been there to verify it, what I just said, but that's true. So I didn't make up the rules. They did that. They were being all, yeah, the Khazars, the Khazarians. Wasn't that the race of the guy in The Princess Bride who was the little short bald guy? Wasn't he a Khazarian?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Let's see. Princess Bride. Let me just check this real. Princess Bride character. What was his name?
The guy with the poisoned cups?
Vizini. I think he was Khazarian. Because they knew about this trick and they were telling you in Hollywood, like, oh yeah, the Khazarians. I'm pretty sure he was Khazarian. Something like that. But yeah, that's been a problem for forever. It's just the grabbler people. It's not my fault.
Should we do a segment on one of the next shows about how to get ready for the Great Reset? Get your affairs in order.
Now look here. I put Vicini Khazarian in Google, and the first thing that came up was the Khazar hypothesis of Ashkenazi ancestry. And look, Ashkenazi has Nazi in the last part of it. It's all just a grabble. It's all nonsense. It's like the last four letters of Ashkenazi are Nazi. N-A-Z-I. It's just so stupid. Everything is, it's just lies all the way down. And so, I think you can't claim to be Jewish if you're not actually practicing Judaism, is my point. Judaism is not an ethnic group. If it were, you couldn't convert to it. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. So annoying. But this is my love for the Jews. Mm-hmm. I'm helping them.
You're helping them?
I am helping them. I'm helping them not be associated with people like Vicini, who capture princesses and try to stage fake wars, which is all that Jared Kushner is doing with Ivanka Trump. That's all it was.
Should I wrap the show?
I guess so. I'm mad about things that happened in the 800s with Khazar Ukraine. Yeah. Zelensky is just pretending. He's not really a war hero. He's just there being like, but all those images of him were fake. They just made up.
Yeah, there's no way Zelensky's like on the ground with his cabinet fighting. It's dumb.
Student loan.
You need to write lyrics for that student loan song.
I think it's the national theme of Ukraine. I think they.
I want you to write that up for next show.
Okay.
Your producer has spoken.
Targets up here, we just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast and went right over the top of us.